In the beginning, the universe was created. This has made a lot of people very angry and been widely regarded as a bad move. Many races believe that it was created by some sort of god, though the Jatravartid people of Viltvodal 6 believe that the entire universe was in fact sneezed out of the nose of a being called the Great Green Arkelseizure. The Jatravartids, who live in perpetual fear of the time they call the coming of the Great White Handkerchief, are small blue creatures with more than 50 arms each, who are therefore unique in being the only race in history to have invented the aerosol deodorant before the wheel. However, the Great Green Arkelseizure theory is not widely accepted outside Viltvodal 6, and so, the universe being the puzzling place it is, other explanations are constantly being sought. For instance, a race of hyper-intelligent, pan-dimensional beings once built themselves a gigantic supercomputer called Deep Thought to calculate once and for all the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. For 7.5 million years, Deep Thought computed and calculated, and in the end announced that the answer was in fact 42. And so another, even bigger computer had to be built to find out what the actual question was. And this computer, which was called the Earth, was so large that it was frequently mistaken for a planet, especially by the strange ape-like beings who roamed its surface, totally unaware that they were simply part of a gigantic computer program. And this is very odd, because without that fairly simple and obvious piece of knowledge, nothing that ever happened on the Earth could possibly make the slightest bit of sense. Sadly, however, just before the critical moment of readout, the Earth was unexpectedly demolished by the Vogons to make way, so they claimed, for a new hyperspace bypass, and so all hope of discovering a meaningful life was lost forever. Or so it would seem. 2 of these strange, ape-like creatures survived. Arthur Dent escaped at the very last moment because an old friend of his, Ford Prefect, suddenly turned out to be from a small planet somewhere in the vicinity of Betelgeuse, and not from Guildford as he had hitherto claimed. And more to the point, he knew how to hitch rides on flying saucers. Tricia Macmillan, or Trillian, had skipped the planet 6 months earlier with Zaphod Beeblebrox, the then president of the galaxy. 2 survivors. They are all that remains of the greatest experiment ever conducted to find the ultimate question and the ultimate answer of life, the universe, and everything. And less than 500,000 miles from where their starship is drifting lazily through the inky blackness of space, a Vogon ship is moving slowly towards them. Like all Vogon ships, it looked as if it had not been so much designed as congealed. Uglier things have been spotted in the skies, but not by reliable witnesses. In fact, to see anything much uglier than a Vogon ship, you would have to go inside it and look at a Vogon. One thing Vogons don't like is leaving a job unfinished, particularly this Vogon, and particularly, for various reasons, this job. This Vogon was Captain Prostetnik Vogon Jeltz of the Galactic Hyperspace Planning Council, and he it was who had had the job of demolishing the so-called planet Earth. He heaved his monumentally vile body round in his ill-fitting slimy seat and stared at the monitor screen on which the starship Heart of Gold was being systematically scanned. It mattered little to him that Zaphod Beeblebrox was aboard. Zaphod Beeblebrox was now the ex-president of the galaxy, and though every police force in the galaxy was currently pursuing both him and this ship he had stolen, the Vogon was not interested. He had other fish to fry.
Computer, get me my brain care specialist on the line.
Within a few seconds, the face of Gag Halfront appeared on the screen. Though the Vogon persistently referred to him as my private brain care specialist, there was not a lot of brain to take care of, and it was in fact Halfront who was employing the Vogon. He was paying him an awful lot of money to do some very dirty work.
Well, hello, my captain of Vogon's Prostetnik, and how are we feeling today?
The Vogon captain told him that in the last few hours he had wiped out nearly half his crew in a disciplinary exercise.
Well, I think this is perfectly normal behavior for a Vogon, you know? The natural and healthy channeling of the aggressive instinct into acts of senseless violence.
That is what you always say.
Well, again, I think that this is perfectly normal behavior for a psychiatrist. Good. We are clearly both very well adjusted in our mental attitudes today. Now tell me, what news of the mission?
We have located the ship. The Earthman is there and a female from the same planet. They are the last.
Good, good. Who else?
The man prefect.
Yes?
And Zaphod Beeblebrox.
Ah, yes. I had been expecting this. It is most regrettable. Beeblebrox, you know, is one of my most profitable clients. He has personality problems beyond the dreams of analysts. Still, you are ready for your task?
Yes.
Good. Destroy the ship immediately.
What about Beeblebrox?
Well, Zaphod's just this guy, you know.
He vanished from the screen. The Vogon captain pressed a communicator button which connected him with the remains of his crew.
Attack.
At that precise moment, Zaphod Beeblebrox was in his cabin swearing very loudly. "Starpox!" At that same precise moment, Ford Prefect burst into Zaphod's door and explained what was on his mind. Vogons! A short while before this, Arthur Dent had set out from his cabin in search of a cup of tea. It was not a quest he embarked upon with a great deal of optimism, because he knew that the only source of hot drinks on the entire ship was a benighted piece of equipment produced by the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation. It was called a Nutrimatic Drinks Synthesizer, and he had encountered it before. "Listen, you machine, you claim you can synthesize any drink in existence, so why do you keep giving me the same undrinkable stuff?" "That drink was individually tailored to meet your personal requirements for nutrition and pleasure." "Ah, so I'm a masochist on a diet, am I?" "Share and enjoy." "Oh, shut up." "Will that be all?" Arthur decided to give up and wandered up to the bridge. In the empty wastes of space, the heart of gold hung still. Around it blazed the billion pinpricks of the galaxy. Towards it crept the ugly yellow lump of the Vogon ship. "Vogons!" snapped Ford. "We're under attack!" "Well, what are you doing? Let's get out of here!" "Can't. Computer's jammed." "Jammed?" "It says all its circuits are occupied. There's no power anywhere in the ship." Ford moved away from the computer terminal, wiped a sleeve across his forehead, and slumped back against the wall. "Nothing we can do," he said. Arthur cleared his throat. "Tell me, did the computer say what was occupying it? I just ask out of interest." "What have you done to it, monkey man?" "Well, nothing, in fact. It's just that I think a short while ago it was trying to work out how to—" "Yes?" "Make me some tea." "That's right, guys. Just coping with that problem right now, and wow, it's a biggie. Be with you in a while." As if to relieve the tension, the Vogons chose that moment to start firing. The ship shook. The ship thundered. Outside, the inch-thick force shield around it blistered, crackled, and spat under the barrage of a dozen 30-megahertz definite-kill Photrazon cannon, and looked as if it wouldn't be around for long. 4 minutes is how long Ford Prefect gave it. Dying for a cup of tea, eh? 3 minutes and 40 seconds. "Will you stop counting?" "Yes," said Ford Prefect, "in 3 minutes and 35 seconds. Aboard the Vogon ship, Prostetnik Vogon Jeltz was puzzled. He had expected a chase. He had expected an exciting grapple with tractor beams, but the Heart of Gold just sat there and took it. He tested every sensor at his disposal to see if there was any subtle trickery afoot, but no subtle trickery was to be found. He didn't know about the tea, of course. Quite how Zaphod Beeblebrox arrived at the idea of holding a séance at this point is something he was never quite clear on. "You want to talk to your great-grandfather?" "Yeah. Listen, Ford, I think he may be able to help us. Okay, round the central console. Now, come on. Trillion, Monkey Man, move!" They clustered round the central console in confusion, sat down, and, feeling exceptionally foolish, held hands. With his third hand, Zaphod turned off the lights. Darkness gripped the ship. Outside, the thunderous roar of the definite kill cannon continued to rip at the force field. "Concentrate on his name." "Well, what is it?" "Zaphod Beeblebrox the Fourth." "The fourth?" "Yeah. Listen, I am Zaphod Beeblebrox. My father was Zaphod Beeblebrox the Second. My grandfather, Zaphod Beeblebrox the Third." "What?" "There was an accident with a contraceptive and a time machine. Now concentrate." 3 minutes. The only light on the bridge came from 2 dim red triangles in a far corner where Marvin, the paranoid android, sat slumped, ignoring all and ignored by all, in a private and rather unpleasant world of his own. On Zaphod's brows stood beads of sweat. At last he let out a cry of anger, snatched back his hands from Trillian and Ford, and stabbed at the light switch.
"I was beginning to think you'd never turn the lights on. No, not too bright, please. My eyes aren't what they once were."
4 figures jolted upright in their seats.
"Now, who disturbs me at this time?"
said the small, bent, gaunt figure standing by the sprays of fern at the far end of the bridge. His 2 small, wispy-haired heads looked so ancient that it seemed they might hold dim memories of the birth of the galaxies themselves. "Hi, Great-Granddad."
"Ah, Zaphod Beeblebrox, the last of our great line. Zaphod Beeblebrox the Nothingth."
"The first?"
"The Nothingth."
Look, I'm really sorry about the flowers. I meant to send them along, but you know the shop was fresh out of wreaths and—"
"You forgot."
2 minutes, Zaphod. Yeah, but I did mean to send them, and I'll write to my great-grandmother as well, just as soon as we get out of this, how is she?"
"Your late great-grandmother and I are very well, but very disappointed in you, young Zaphod. We have been following your progress with considerable despondency."
"Yeah, look, just at the moment, you see—"
"Not to say contempt."
"Could you, sort of listen for a moment?"
"I mean, what exactly are you doing with your life?"
"I am being attacked by a Vogon fleet."
"Doesn't surprise me in the least."
"Only it's happening right now, you see?" 1 minute 30. "Yeah, look, Great-Granddad, can you actually help? Because—"
"Help? You go swanning your way around the galaxy with your disreputable friends, too busy to put flowers on my grave. Plastic ones would have done, would have been quite appropriate from you, but no, too busy, too modern, too skeptical, till you suddenly find yourself in a bit of a fix and come over suddenly all astrally minded." "Well, I don't know, young Zaphod. I think I'll have to think about this one."
1 minute 10.
"Why does that man keep talking in numbers?"
"Those numbers are the time we have got left to live."
"Oh, doesn't apply to me, of course."
"Great-grandfather, it applies to us. We are still alive, and we are about to lose our lives."
"Good job, too. What use is your life to anyone? When I think of what you made of it, the phrase pig's ear comes irresistibly to mind."
"But I was president of the galaxy, man."
"Huh. And what kind of a job is that for a Beeblebrox?"
"Hey, what? Only president, you know, of the whole galaxy."
Conceited little mega puppy.
48 seconds.
"Now, Zaphod, I don't know if you are really capable of succeeding in your job. I think you will not be able to avoid it. However, I am too long dead and too tired to care as much as I did. The principal reason I am helping you now is that I couldn't bear the thought of you and your modern friends slouching about up here. Understood?"
"Yeah, thanks a bundle."
"Oh, and Zaphod, if you ever find you need help again, you know, if you're in trouble, need a hand out of a tight corner, please don't hesitate to get lost."
Within the space of 1 second, a bolt of light flashed from the wizened old ghost's hand to the computer. The ghost vanished, the bridge filled with billowing smoke, and the heart of gold leapt an unknown distance through the dimensions of time and space. 10 light-years away, Gag Halfront jacked up his smile by several notches. As he watched the picture on his vision screen, he saw the final shreds of the Heart of Gold's force shield ripped away and the ship itself vanish in a puff of smoke. Good, he thought. The end of the last stray survivors of the demolition he had ordered on the planet Earth, he thought. The final end of this dangerous to the psychiatric profession and subversive also to the psychiatric profession experiment to find a question to the ultimate question of life, the universe and everything, he thought. There would be some celebration with his fellows tonight, and in the morning they would meet again their unhappy, bewildered, and highly profitable patients, secure in the knowledge that the meaning of life would not now be once and for all well and truly sorted out, he thought. "Family's always embarrassing, isn't it?" said Ford to Zaphod as the smoke began to clear. He paused. He looked about. Where's Zaphod? Arthur and Trillian looked about blankly. They were pale and shaken and didn't know where Zaphod was. "Marvin? Where's Zaphod?" A moment later he said, "Where's Marvin?" The robot's corner was empty. The ship was utterly silent. It lay in thick black space. They consulted the computer. It said, "I regret I have been temporarily closed to all communication. Meanwhile, here is some light music." They turned off the light music. They searched every corner of the ship in increasing bewilderment and alarm. Everywhere was dead and silent. Nowhere was there any trace of Zaphod or of Marvin. One of the last areas they checked was the small bay in which the Nutrimatic machine was located. On the delivery plate of the Nutrimatic drink synthesizer was a small tray on which sat 3 bone china cups and saucers, a bone china jug of milk, a silver teapot full of the best tea Arthur had ever tasted, and a small printed note saying, "Wait." Ursa Minor Beta is, some say, one of the most appalling places in the known universe. Although it is excruciatingly rich, horrifyingly sunny, and more full of wonderfully exciting people than a pomegranate is full of pips, it can hardly be insignificant that when a recent edition of Play Being magazine headlined an article with the words, "When you are tired of Ursa Minor Beta, you are tired of life," the suicide rate there quadrupled overnight. Not that there are any nights on Ursa Minor Beta. It is a West Zone planet, which by an inexplicable and somewhat suspicious freak of topography consists almost entirely of subtropical coastline. By an equally suspicious freak of temporal relastatics, it is nearly always Saturday afternoon, just before the beach bars close. There is only one city on Ursa Minor Beta, and that is only called a city because the swimming pools are slightly thicker on the ground there than elsewhere. If you approach Light City by air, you will see why it has this name. Here the sun shines brightest of all, glittering on the swimming pools, shimmering on the white palm-lined boulevards, glistening on the healthy bronzed specks moving up and down them, gleaming off the villas, the hazy air pads, the beach bars, and so on. Most particularly, it shines on a building, a tall, beautiful building, consisting of 2 30-story white towers connected by a bridge halfway up their length. The building is the home of a book, and was built here on the proceeds of an extraordinary copyright lawsuit fought between the book's editors and a breakfast cereal company. The book is a guidebook, a travel book. It is, of course, that invaluable companion for all those who want to see the marvels of the known universe for less than $30 Altarian a day, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. If on this particular day, afternoon, stretch of evening time, call it what you will, you had approached the second pavement cafe on the right, you would have seen Zaphod Beeblebrox sitting and looking very startled and confused. The reason for his confusion was that 5 seconds earlier he had been sitting on the bridge of the starship Heart of Gold. Where the hell was he? How had he got there? Where was his ship? He fished in his pocket for his 2 pairs of sunglasses. In the same pocket he felt a hard, smooth, unidentified lump of very heavy metal. He pulled it out and looked at it. He blinked at it in surprise. Where had he got that? He returned it to his pocket and put on the sunglasses, annoyed to discover that the metal object had scratched one of the lenses. He relaxed, but only a little bit.
Hello, yes. Megadodo Publications, home of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the most totally remarkable book in the whole of the known universe. Can I help you?
Said the large pink-winged insect into one of the 70 phones lined up along the vast chrome expanse of the reception desk in the foyer of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy offices.
What? Yes, I passed on your message to Mr. Zarniwoop, but I'm afraid he's too cool to see you right now. He's on an intergalactic cruise. Yes, he is in his office, but he's on an intergalactic cruise. Thank you so much for calling.
It slammed down the phone. Zaphod Beeblebrox entered the foyer. He strode up to the insect receptionist. Okay, where's Zarniwoop? Get me Zarniwoop.
Well, sir, if you could be a little cool about it.
Look, I'm up to here with cool, okay? I'm so amazingly cool you could keep a side of meat in me for a month. I'm so hip I have difficulty seeing over my pelvis. Now will you move before I blow it?
Well, if you let me explain, sir, I'm afraid that isn't possible right now as Mr. Zarniwoop is on an intergalactic cruise.
Hell. When is he going to be back?
Back, sir? He's in his office.
This cat's on an intergalactic cruise in his office? Listen, Three Eyes, don't you try to out-weird me. I get stranger things than you free with my breakfast cereal.
Well, just who do you think you are, honey? Zaphod Beeblebrox or something?
Count the heads.
You are Zaphod Beeblebrox.
Yeah, but don't shout it out or they'll all want one.
The Zaphod Beeblebrox?
No, just a Zaphod Beeblebrox. Didn't you hear I come in 6-packs?
But, sir, I just heard on the sub-ether radio report it said you were dead.
Yeah, that's right. I just haven't stopped moving yet. Now, where do I find Zarniwoop?
Well, sir, his office is on the 15th floor, but...
But he's on an intergalactic cruise. Yeah. How do I get to him?
The newly installed Sirius Cybernetics Corporation vertical people transporters are in the far corner, sir. But, sir, can I ask you why you want to see you, Mr. Zarniwoop?
Yeah, I told myself I had to. I just materialized out of thin air in one of your cafes as a result of an argument with the ghost of my great-grandfather. No sooner had I got there than my former self, the one that operated on my brain, popped into my head and said, "Go see Zarniwoop." I have never heard of the cat. That is all I know. That and the fact that I have got to find the man who rules the universe.
Mr. Beeblebrox, sir, you're so weird. You should be in movies.
Yeah, and you, baby, should be in real life. The insect paused for a moment to recover from its agitation and then reached out a tentacle to answer a ringing phone. A metal hand restrained it.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir. Can I help you?
I doubt it.
Well, in that case, if you'll just excuse me.
No one can help me.
Yes, sir. Well...
Not that anyone's tried, of course.
Is that so?
Hardly worth anyone's while to help a menial robot, is it?
I'm sorry, sir.
I mean, where's the percentage in being kind or helpful to a robot if it doesn't have any gratitude circuits?
And you don't have any?
I've never had occasion to find out.
Listen, you miserable heap of maladjusted metal.
Aren't you going to ask me what I want?
What do you want?
I'm looking for someone. Zaphod Beeblebrox. He's over there.
Then why did you ask me?
I just wanted something to talk to.
What?
Pathetic, isn't it?
Hey, Marvin. Marvin, how did you get here?
I don't know. One moment I was sitting in your ship feeling very depressed, and the next moment I was standing here feeling utterly miserable. An improbability field, I expect.
Yeah, I expect my great-grandfather sent you along to keep me company. Thanks a bundle, Granddad. So, how are you?
Oh, fine. If you happen to like being me, which personally I don't.
Yeah, said Zaphod as the elevator doors opened.
Hello. I am to be your elevator for this trip to the floor of your choice. I have been designed by the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation to take you, the visitor, to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy into these, their offices.
Yeah, said Zaphod, stepping into it. What else do you do besides talk?
I go up or down.
Good. We're going up.
Or down.
Yeah, okay. Up, please.
Down is very nice.
Good. Now, will you take us up?
May I ask you if you've considered all the possibilities that down might offer you?
Like what other possibilities?
Well, there's the basement, the microfiles, the heating system,
Holy Zarquan. Did I ask for an existential elevator? What's the matter with the thing?
It doesn't want to go up. I think it's afraid.
Afraid? Of what? Heights? An elevator that's afraid of heights?
No, of the future.
The future? What does the wretched thing want, a pension scheme? At that moment, a commotion broke out in the reception hall behind them. From the walls around them came the sound of suddenly active machinery.
We can all see into the future. It's part of our programming.
Zaphod looked out of the elevator. An agitated crowd had gathered round the elevator area, pointing and shouting. Every elevator in the building was coming down very fast. He ducked back in. Marvin, just get this elevator to go up, will you? We've got to get to Zarniwoop.
Why?
I don't know, but when I find him, he'd better have a very good reason for me wanting to see him. At the 15th floor, the elevator doors snapped open quickly.
15th, and remember, I'm only doing this because I like your robot.
Zaphod and Marvin bundled out of the elevator, which instantly snapped its doors shut and dropped as fast as its mechanism would take it. Zaphod looked around warily. The corridor was deserted and silent and gave no clue as to where Zarniwoop might be found. All the doors that let off the corridor were closed and unmarked. They were standing close to the bridge which led across from one tower of the building to the other. You know something?
More than you can possibly imagine.
I am dead certain this building shouldn't be shaking. It was just a light tremor through the soles of his feet. And another one. Either they've got some vibro system for toning up your muscles while you work, or this building's being bombed. A roar cracked through the building. Who in the galaxy would want to bomb a publishing company? Suddenly, at the end of a corridor, leading at right angles from this one, he caught sight of a figure as it lunged into view, a man. He was short, stocky, and weather-beaten, and his clothes looked as if they'd been twice round the galaxy and back with him in them. Zaphod shouted in his ear when he arrived, "Do you know your building's being bombed?" It suddenly stopped being light. Glancing round at the window to see why, Zaphod gaped as a huge, slug-like, gunmetal green spacecraft crept through the air past the building. 2 more followed it. "The government you deserted is out to get you, Zaphod. They've sent a squadron of Frogstar fighters." The man was pulling him back through a door. He went with him. With a searing whine, a small, black, spider-like object shot through the air and disappeared down the corridor. "What was that?" "Frogstar Scout Robot Class A out looking for you. Get down." From the opposite direction came a larger, black, spider-like object. It zapped past them. "And that was?" "A Frogstar Scout Robot Class B out looking for you." "And that?" "A Frogstar Scout Robot Class C out looking for you." "Hey, pretty stupid robots, huh?" From over the bridge came a massive, rumbling hum. A gigantic black shape was moving over it from the opposite tower, the size and shape of a tank. "Holy photon! What's that?" "A tank. Frogstar Scout Robot Class D come to get you." "Marvin, you see that robot coming towards us?"
I suppose you want me to stop it,
"Yeah.
whilst you save your skins.
Yeah, get in there."
Just so long as I know where I stand."
The man tugged at Zaphod's arm, and Zaphod followed him off down the corridor. Marvin stood at the end of the bridge corridor. He was not in fact a particularly small robot, But he did, however, look pitifully small as the gigantic black tank rolled to a halt in front of him. The tank examined him with a probe. The probe withdrew.
Out of my way, little robot. I'm afraid that I've been left here to stop you. You? Stop me? Go on. No, really, I have. What are you armed with? Guess. Guess? Laser beams?
Marvin shook his head solemnly.
No. Too obvious. Antimatter ray? Far too obvious. Yes. How about an electron RAM? No, not one of those. Good though, isn't it? Very good. I know. You must have one of those new xanthic restructron destabilized xenon emitters. No. Oh. Then it must be... You're thinking along the wrong lines. You're failing to take into account something fairly basic in the relationship between men and robots. I know. Is it? Just think. They left me, an ordinary, menial robot, to stop you, a gigantic, heavy-duty battle machine, whilst they ran off to save themselves. What do you think they would leave me with? Something pretty damn devastating, I should expect. Expect? Oh, yes, expect. I'll tell you what they gave me to protect myself with, shall I? Yes, all right. Nothing. Nothing? Nothing at all. Not an electronic sausage. Well, doesn't that just take the biscuit? Nothing, eh? Just don't think, do they? And me, with this terrible pain in all the diodes down my left side. Hell, that makes me angry. I think I'll smash that wall down. You ain't seen nothing yet. I can take out this floor too, no trouble. Hell's bell! What a depressingly stupid machine.
Zaphod and the as yet unnamed man lurched up one corridor, down a second, and along a third. With difficulty, they reached one of a number of totally anonymous unmarked doors and heaved at it. With a sudden jolt, it opened and they fell inside. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rooster, and this is my towel. Hello, Rooster. Do we just sit here or what? What do these guys out there want? You, Beeblebrox. They're going to take you to the Frog Star, the most totally evil world in the galaxy. Oh, yeah? They'll have to come and get me first. They have come and got you. Look out of the window. The ground's going away. Where are they taking the ground? They're taking the building. We're airborne. Clouds streaked past the office window. What have I done to deserve this? I walk into a building, they take it away. Hey, where did you say this building was flying to? The Frog Star, the most totally evil place in the universe. Do they have food there? Food? You're going to the Frog Star, and you're worried about whether they've got food? Without food, I may not make it to the Frog Star. Beeblebrox, have you any idea what's going to happen to you on the Frog Star? They're going to feed me? They're going to feed you into the total perspective vortex, the most savage psychic torture a sentient being can undergo. So, no food, huh? Listen, you can kill a man, destroy his body, break his spirit, but only the total perspective vortex can annihilate a man's soul. The treatment lasts seconds, but the effects last the rest of your life. You ever had a pan-galactic gargle blaster? This is worse. Phew. Beeblebrox, I will now do the job I was sent here to do. Zaphod looked up at him from where he was sitting in a corner, sharing unspoken thoughts with Marvin. The building will shortly be landing. When you leave the building, do not go out of the door. Go out of the window. Good luck, he added, and walked out of the door, disappearing from Zaphod's life as mysteriously as he had entered it. Zaphod leapt up and tried the door, but Rooster had already locked it. He shrugged and returned to the corner. 2 minutes later, the building crash-landed amongst the other wreckage. Zaphod was badly shaken by the crash. He lay for a while in the silent, dusty rubble to which most of the room had been reduced. He looked around the cracked and broken room. The wall had split round the door frame, and the door hung open. The window, by some miracle, was closed and unbroken. Eventually, stung by the continuous series of contemptuous looks that Marvin appeared to be giving him, he took a deep breath and clambered out onto the steeply inclined side of the building. Marvin followed him, and together they began to crawl slowly and painfully down the 15 floors that separated them from the ground. About halfway down the side of the shattered building, they stopped to rest.
Poor souls,
said a deep, ethereal voice in Zaphod's ear. Twisting round violently to find the source of the voice nearly caused Zaphod to fall off the building. He grabbed savagely at a protruding window fitting and cut his hand on it. He hung on, breathing heavily. The voice had no visible source whatsoever, and there was no one there. Zaphod looked wildly about. Hey, who are you? Where are you?
I am Gargravar. I am the custodian of the total perspective vortex. Why don't I see you again at the bottom?
Zaphod nodded. Minutes later he clambered over the ripped and mangled foundations of the building, and once more removing his sunglasses, he dropped to the ground. Marvin joined him a moment or so later and lay face down in the dust and rubble, from which position he seemed disinclined to move.
Ah, there you are. Excuse me leaving you like that. It's just that I have a terrible head for heights.
Hey, why can't I see you? Why aren't you here?
I am here. My body wanted to come, but it's a bit busy at the moment. So, you are to be put into the vortex, yes?
Well, this cat's in no hurry, you know. I can just slouch about and take in a look at the local scenery, you know.
No, the vortex is ready for you now. You must come. Follow me.
Yeah? And how am I meant to do that?
I'll hum for you. Follow the humming.
A soft keening sound drifted through the air, a pale, sad sound that seemed to be without any kind of focus. It was only by listening very carefully that Zaphod was able to detect the direction from which it was coming. Slowly, dazedly, he stumbled off in its wake. What else was there to do? The grey plain stretched before Zaphod, a ruined, shattered plain. The wind whipped wildly over it. Visible in the middle was the steel pimple of the dome. This, gathered Zaphod, was where he was going. This was the total perspective vortex. As he stood and gazed bleakly at it, a sudden inhuman wail of terror emanated from it, as of a man having his soul burnt from his body. Hey, what was that?
A recording of the last man who was put in the vortex. It is always played to the next victim, a sort of prelude.
Hey, it sounds really bad. Couldn't we maybe slope off to a party or something for a while, think it over?
For all I know, I'm probably at one. My body, that is. It goes to a lot of parties without me. Says I only get in the way. Hey-ho. My name is Pizpot Gargravar. Come. I must take you to the vortex.
You come from this hellhole pit, do you?
No. I come from the Frogstar World Sea. Beautiful place, wonderful fishing.
I flit back there in the evenings, though all I can do now is watch. The total perspective vortex is the only thing on this planet with any function. It was built here because no one else wanted it on their doorstep." At that moment, another dismal scream rent the air, and Zaphod shuddered. "What can do that to a guy?" "The universe. The whole infinite universe. The infinite suns. The infinite distances between them. And yourself, an invisible dot on an invisible dot. Infinitely small." "Hey, I'm Zaphod Beeblebrock's man, you know." Gargravar made no reply, but merely resumed his mournful humming till they reached the tarnished steel dome in the middle of the plain. As they reached it, a door hummed open in the side, revealing a small darkened chamber within. "Enter." "Hey, what now?" "Now." Zaphod peered nervously inside. The chamber was very small. It was steel-lined, and there was hardly space in it for more than one man. It doesn't look like any kind of vortex to me." "It isn't. It's just the elevator. Enter." With infinite trepidation, Zaphod stepped into it. He was aware of Gargravar being in the elevator with him, though the disembodied man was not, for the moment, speaking. The elevator began its descent. I must get myself into the right frame of mind for this." "There is no right frame of mind." "You really know how to make a guy feel inadequate." "I don't. The vortex does." At the bottom of the shaft, the rear of the elevator opened up, and Zaphod stumbled out into a smallish, functional, steel-lined chamber. At the far side of it stood a single upright steel box, just large enough for a man to stand in. It was that simple. It connected to a small pile of components and instruments via a single thick wire. "Is that it?" "That is it." "Oh, doesn't look too bad. And, I get in there, do I?" "You get in there, and I'm afraid you must do it now." Okay. He opened the door of the box and stepped in. Inside the box, he waited. After 5 seconds, there was a click, and the entire universe was there in the box with him. The door of the vortex swung open. "Hi!" "Beeblebrox. Could I have a drink, please?" You have been in the vortex." "You saw me, kid." "And it was working?" "Sure was." "And you saw the whole infinity of creation?" "Sure. Really neat place, you know that?" "And you saw yourself in relation to it all?" "Oh, yeah.
But what did you experience?"
Just told me what I knew all the time. I'm a really terrific and great guy. Didn't I tell you, baby? I am Zaphod Beeblebrox." His gaze passed over the machinery which powered the vortex, and suddenly stopped, startled. He breathed heavily. "Hey, is that really a piece of fairy cake?" He ripped the small piece of confectionery from the censers with which it was surrounded. "If I told you how much I needed this," he said ravenously, "I wouldn't have time to eat it." He ate it. A short while later, he was running across the plain in the direction of the ruined city. The elation of his recent experience was still with him, though. The whole universe. He had seen the whole universe stretching to infinity around him. Everything. And with it had come the clear and extraordinary knowledge that he was the most important thing in it. Having a conceited ego is one thing. Actually being told by a machine is another. He didn't have time to reflect on this matter. Gargravar had told him that he would have to alert his masters as to what had happened, but that he was prepared to leave a decent interval before doing so, enough time for Zaphod to make a break and find somewhere to hide. After a while, the remains of a wide sweeping road led off from the one down which he was walking, and at its end lay a vast low building, surrounded with sundry smaller ones, the whole surrounded by the remains of a perimeter barrier. He approached the building. Along one side of it, the front, it would seem, since it faced a wide concreted apron area, were 3 gigantic doors, maybe 60 feet high. The far one of these was open, and towards this Zaphod ran. Inside all was gloom, dust, and confusion. Giant cobwebs lay over everything. Through the heavy gloom huge shapes loomed, covered with debris. They were all spacecraft, all derelict. Towards the rear of the building lay one old ship, slightly larger than the others, and buried beneath even deeper piles of dust and cobwebs. Its outline, however, seemed unbroken. He stared at the ship in disbelief. His heart was beating fast. He rummaged feverishly amongst the debris lying on the floor all about him, and found a short length of tubing and a non-biodegradable plastic cup. Out of this he fashioned a crude stethoscope and placed it against the side of the ship. What he heard made his brains turn somersaults.
Transstellar Cruise Lines would like to apologize to passengers for the continuing delay to this flight. We are currently awaiting the loading of our complement of small lemon-soaked paper napkins for your comfort, refreshment and hygiene during the journey. Meanwhile, we thank you for your patience. The cabin crew will shortly be serving coffee and biscuits again.
Zaphod staggered backwards, staring wildly at the ship. He walked around for a few moments in a daze. 2 minutes later, he was on board. Suddenly a door opened and a figure stepped out in front of him. "Please return to your seat, sir," said the android stewardess, and turning her back on him, she walked on down the corridor in front of him. He followed her through the door. They were now in the passenger compartment, and Zaphod's heart stopped still again for a moment. In every seat sat a passenger, strapped into his or her seat. The passengers' hair was long and unkempt, their fingernails were long, the men wore beards. All of them were quite clearly alive, but sleeping. Zaphod had the creeping horrors. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for bearing with us during this slight delay. We will be taking off as soon as we possibly can. If you would like to wake up now, I will serve you coffee and biscuits." There was a slight hum. At that moment, all the passengers awoke. They awoke, screaming and clawing at the straps and life support systems that held them tightly in their seats. Then one of them rose from his seat. He turned and looked at Zaphod. Zaphod's skin was crawling all over his body as if it was trying to get off. He turned and ran from the bedlam. He plunged through the door and back into the corridor. The man pursued him. He raced in a frenzy to the end of the corridor, through the entrance chamber and beyond. He arrived on the flight deck, slammed and bolted the door tight behind him. He leant back against the door, breathing hard. Within seconds, a hand started beating on the door. From somewhere on the flight deck, a metallic voice addressed him.
Passengers are not allowed on the flight deck. Please return to your seat and wait for the ship to take off. Coffee and biscuits are being served. This is your autopilot speaking. Please return to your seat.
"I am not a passenger."
Please return to your seat.
"I am not a passenger."
Please return to your seat.
"I am not a—" "Hello, you're the autopilot.
Yes.
You're in charge of this ship?"
Yes. There has been a delay. Passengers are to be kept temporarily in suspended animation for their comfort and convenience. Coffee and biscuits are served every year, after which passengers are returned to suspended animation for their continued comfort and convenience. Departure will take place when the flight stores are complete. We apologize for the delay.
Zaphod moved away from the door, on which the pounding had now ceased. He approached the flight console. "Delay?" But at that moment the door opened. Zaphod span round to see the man who had pursued him standing there. He carried a large briefcase. He was smartly dressed, and his hair was short. He had no beard and no long fingernails. "Zaphod Beeblebrox, my name is Zarniwoop. I believe you wanted to see me." Oh, man, where did you spring from?" "I've been waiting here for you." "What's going on?" "Very simple. I discovered the coordinates at which this man could be found, the man who rules the universe, and discovered that his world was protected by an improbability field. To protect my secret and myself, I retreated to the safety of this totally artificial universe and hid myself away in a forgotten cruise liner. I was secure. Meanwhile, you and I— You and I? You mean I knew you? Yes, we knew each other well. I had no taste. Meanwhile, you and I arranged that you would steal the improbability drive ship, the only one which could reach the ruler's world, and bring it to me here. This you have now done, I trust, and I congratulate you. He smiled a tight little smile which Zaphod wanted to hit with a brick. Oh, and in case you were wondering, this universe was created specifically for you to come to. You are therefore the most important person in this universe. You would never have survived the total perspective vortex in the real one. Shall we go? Where? To your ship, the Heart of Gold. You did bring it, I trust? No. Where is your jacket? My jacket? I took it off. It's outside. Good. We'll go and find it. Zarniwoop held up a silencing finger as the hatchway swung open. A few feet away from them they could see Zaphod's jacket lying in the debris. A very remarkable and very powerful ship. Watch. As they watched, the pocket on the jacket suddenly bulged. It split. It ripped. The small metal model of the Heart of Gold that Zaphod had been bewildered to discover in his pocket was growing. It grew. It continued to grow. It reached, after 2 minutes, its full size. Zaphod swayed. You mean that I had it with me all the time? Oh, yes, of course. That was the whole point. That's it. You can count me out. From here on in, you can count me out. I've had all I want of this. You play your own games. I'm afraid you cannot leave. You are entwined in the improbability field. You cannot escape. He smiled the smile that Zaphod had wanted to hit, and this time Zaphod hit it. Ford Prefect bounded up to the bridge of the Heart of Gold. Trillian! Arthur! It's working! The ship's reactivated! Trillian and Arthur were asleep on the floor. Come on, you guys, we're going! We're off!
Hi there, guys. It's really great to be back with you again, I can tell you, and I just want to say that—
Shut up! Tell us where the hell we are. Frogstar World B, and man, it's a dump, said Zaphod, running onto the bridge. Hi, guys. You must be so amazingly glad to see me you can't even find words to tell me what a cool frood I am. What a what? Said Arthur blearily, picking himself up from the floor and not taking any of this in. I know how you feel. I'm so great even I get tongue-tied talking to myself. Hey, it's good to see you, Trillian, Ford, Monkey Man. Hey, computer?
Hi there, Mr. Beeblebrox, sir. Sure is a great honor—
Shut up and get us out of here fast, fast, fast.
Sure thing, fella. Where do you want to go?
Anywhere. Doesn't matter. Yes, it does. We want to go to the nearest place to eat.
Sure thing,
said the computer happily, and a massive explosion rocked the bridge. When Zarniwoop entered a minute or so later with a black eye, he regarded the 4 wisps of smoke with interest. 4 inert bodies sank through spinning blackness. Consciousness had died. Cold oblivion pulled the bodies down and down into the pit of unbeing. The roar of silence echoed dismally around them, and they sank at last into a dark and bitter sea of heaving red that slowly engulfed them, seemingly forever. After what seemed an eternity, the sea receded and left them lying on a cold, hard shore, the flotsam and jetsam of the stream of life, the universe, and everything. Cold spasms shook them, lights danced sickeningly around them. The cold, hard shore tipped and span and then stood still. It shone darkly. It was a very highly polished, cold, hard shore. A green blur watched them disapprovingly. It coughed. Good evening, madam, gentlemen. Do you have a reservation? Reservation? Said Ford weakly. Yes, sir. Do you need a reservation for the afterlife? Afterlife, sir? Arthur Dent was grappling with his consciousness the way one grapples with a lost bar of soap in the bath. Is this the afterlife? I mean, there's no way we could have survived that blast, is there? A dull, hoarse gurgling sound came from the floor. It was Zaphod Beeblebrox attempting to speak. I certainly didn't survive. I was a total goner, wham-bang, and that was it. If the lady and gentleman would care to order drinks, kapow, splat, instantaneously zonked into our component molecules. Hey, Ford, did you get that thing of your whole life flashing before you? You got that too, your whole life? Yeah, at least I assume it was mine. I spend a lot of time out of my skulls, you know. So, here we are standing dead in this desolate 5-star restaurant. Odd, isn't it? Said Ford. Hey, I think we're missing some ultra-important thing here, you know? Something somebody said and we missed it. The green blur, who had by this time resolved into the shape of a small, wizened, dark-suited green waiter, said, "Perhaps you would care to discuss the matter over drinks." "Drinks! That was it! See what you miss if you don't stay alert?" "Indeed, sir. If the lady and gentleman would care to take drinks before dinner, and the universe will explode later for your pleasure." Ford's head swiveled slowly towards him. "Wow! What sort of drinks do you serve in this place?" I think sir has perhaps misunderstood me. It is not unusual for our customers to be a little disorientated by the time journey, so if I might suggest—" "Time journey?" said Zaphod, Ford, and Trillian all at once. "You mean this isn't the afterlife?" The waiter smiled a polite little waiter's smile. "Afterlife, sir? No, sir. And we're not dead?" "Aha! Ha! Sir is most evidently alive, otherwise I would not attempt to serve, sir." "Hey, guys! This is crazy! We did it! We finally got to where we were going! This is Milliways, the restaurant at the end of the universe!" "When did that end?" said Arthur. "In just a few minutes, sir," said the waiter. "Now, if you would care to order your drinks at last, I will then show you to your table." Zaphod grinned 2 manic grins, sauntered over to the bar, and bought most of it. The restaurant at the end of the universe is one of the most extraordinary ventures in the entire history of catering. It is built on the fragmented remains of an eventually ruined planet which is enclosed in a vast time bubble and projected forward in time to the precise moment of the end of the universe. This is, many would say, impossible. You can arrive for any sitting you like without prior reservation because you can book retrospectively, as it were, when you return to your own time. This is, many would now insist, absolutely impossible. At the restaurant, you can meet and dine with a fascinating cross-section of the entire population of space and time. This, it can be explained patiently, is also impossible. You can visit it as many times as you like and be sure of never meeting yourself because of the embarrassment this usually causes. This, even if the rest were true, which it isn't, is patently impossible, say the doubters. All you have to do is deposit 1 penny in a savings account in your own era, and when you arrive at the end of time, the operation of compound interest means that the fabulous cost of your meal has been paid for. This, many claim, is not merely impossible but clearly insane, which is why the advertising executives of the star system of Bastablon came up with this slogan: "If you've done 6 impossible things this morning, why not round it off with breakfast at Milliways, the restaurant at the end of the universe?" Wow-wee! Zappo! Incredible! The people! The things! The things are also people. The end of the universe is very popular. People like to dress up for it. Gives it a sense of occasion. The tables were fanned out in a large circle around a central stage area where a small band were playing light music. At least 1,000 tables was Arthur's guess, and interspersed amongst them were swaying palms, hissing fountains, grotesque statuary, in short, all the paraphernalia common to all restaurants where little expense has been spared to give the impression that no expense had been spared. "Hey, everybody's here, you know, everybody who was anybody." "Was," said Arthur. "At the end of the universe you have to use the past tense a lot, 'cause everything's been done, you know." "Hey, Zaphod," said Ford, "there's an old mate of mine, hot black Desiato." See the man at the platinum table with a platinum suit on? Oh, yeah. Hey, did that guy ever make it mega big? Wow, bigger than the biggest thing ever. Other than me. Well, who is he supposed to be? Asked Trillian. Hot Black Desiato? You don't know? You never heard of Disaster Area? No, said Trillian, who hadn't. The biggest, said Ford, loudest, richest rock band in the history of, he searched for the word. History itself, said Zaphod. Ford waded off through the throng to renew an old acquaintance. Hey, Hot Black, how you doing? Great to see you, big boy. How's the noise? You're looking great. Really very, very fat and unwell. Amazing. He slapped the man on the back and was mildly surprised that it seemed to elicit no response. Remember the old days? We used to hang out, right? The Bistro Illegal, remember? Slim's Throat Emporium? The Evil Drome Boozerama? Great days, eh? And when we were hungry, we'd pose as public health inspectors. You remember that? And go around confiscating meals and drinks, right? Till we got food poisoning. Oh, and then there were the long nights of talking and drinking in those smelly rooms above the Café Lou in Gretchen Town, New Bethel. And you were always in the next room trying to write songs on your agitar. And we all hated them. And you said you didn't care, and we said we did because we hated them so much. Ford's eyes were beginning to mist over. And you said you didn't want to be a star because you despised the star system, and we said, Hadra and Suliju and me, that we didn't think you had the option. And what do now? You buy star systems. What's that number you do? Bwomp, bwomp. Something, and in the stage act you do, it ends up with this ship crashing right into the sun, and you actually do it. Ship, sun, wham, bang! I mean, forget lasers and stuff. You guys are into solar flares and real sunburn. Oh, and terrible songs. Hey, you want a drink? It began to sink into his squelching mind that something was missing from this reunion, and that the missing something was in some way connected with the fact that the fat man sitting opposite him in the platinum suit and the silvery trilby had not yet said, "Hi, Ford," or "Great to see you after all this time," or in fact, anything at all. More to the point, he had not even moved. Hot Black? A large, meaty hand landed on his shoulder from behind and pushed him aside.
Kid, beat it.
"Oh, yeah?" said Ford. "And who are you?"
I am Mr. Desiato's bodyguard, and I am responsible for his body, and I am not responsible for yours, so take it away before it gets damaged.
Now, wait a minute.
No minutes. No waiting. Mr. Desiato speaks to no one.
"Why?" said Ford. "What's the matter with him?" The bodyguard told him. Ford staggered back to the table where Zaphod, Arthur, and Trillian were sitting waiting for the fun to begin. "Hi, Ford. You speak to the big noise boy?" "Hot Black? Yeah, I sort of spoke to him, yeah." "What did he say?" "Well, not a lot, really. He's spending a year dead for tax reasons. I've got to sit down." The waiter approached. "Would you like to see the menu?" he said, "or would you like to meet the dish of the day?" That's cool," said Zaphod. "We'll meet the meat." In the restaurant, the lights dimmed. The band quickened its pace. A single spotlight stabbed down into the darkness of the stairway that led up to the center of the stage. Up the stairs bounded a tall, brilliantly colored figure. He burst onto the stage, tripped lightly up to the microphone, removed it from its stand with one swoop of his long, thin hand, and stood for a moment bowing left and right to the audience, acknowledging their applause and displaying to them his bay window. "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, the universe as we know it
has now been in existence for over 170,000 million billion years, and will be ending in a little over half an hour. So welcome one and all to Milliways, the restaurant at the end of the universe. I am your host for tonight. My name is Max Caudleplean, and I've just come straight from the very other end of time, where I've been hosting a show at the Big Bang Burger Bar, where I can tell you we had a very exciting evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I will be with you right through this historic occasion, the end of history itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, the candles are lit. The band plays softly, and as the four-shielded dome above us fades into transparency, revealing a dark and sullen sky hung heavy with the ancient light of livid, swollen stars, I can see we're all in for a fabulous evening's apocalypse. Even the soft tootling of the band faded away as stunned shock descended on all those who had not seen this sight before. A monstrous, grisly light poured in on them. The universe was coming to an end. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back with you again in just a moment, and meanwhile, I leave you in the very capable hands of Mr. Reg Nullify and his cataclysmic combo. Big hand, please, ladies and gentlemen, for Reg and the boys. The baleful turmoil of the skies continued. Hesitantly, the audience began to clap, and after a moment or so, normal conversation resumed. Max began his round of the tables, swapping jokes, shouting with laughter, earning his living. A large dairy animal approached Zaphod Beeblebrox's table, a large, fat, meaty quadruped of the bovine type with large, watery eyes, small horns, and what might almost have been an ingratiating smile on its lips.
Good evening. I'm the main dish of the day. May I interest you in parts of my body?
Its gaze was met by looks of startled bewilderment from Arthur and Trillian, a resigned shrug from Ford Prefect, and naked hunger from Zaphod Beeblebrox.
Something off the shoulder, perhaps, braised in a white wine sauce.
Your shoulder? Said Arthur in a horrified whisper.
But naturally my shoulder, sir. Nobody else's is mine to offer.
Zaphod leapt to his feet and started prodding and feeling the animal's shoulder appreciatively.
The rump is very good. I've been exercising it and eating plenty of grain, so there's a lot of good meat there. Or a casserole of me, perhaps.
You mean this animal actually wants us to eat it? Whispered Trillian to Ford. That's absolutely horrible. The most revolting thing I've ever heard. What's the problem, Earthman? I just don't want to eat an animal that's standing there inviting me to, said Arthur. It's heartless. Better than eating an animal that doesn't want to be eaten. That's not the point, Arthur protested. I think I'll just have a green salad, he muttered.
May I urge you to consider my liver? It must be very rich and tender by now. I've been force-feeding myself for months.
Are you going to tell me, said Arthur, that I shouldn't have a green salad?
Well, I know many vegetables that are very clear on that point, which is why it was eventually decided to cut through the whole tangled problem and breed an animal that actually wanted to be eaten and was capable of saying so clearly and distinctly, and here I am.
Glass of water, please, said Arthur. Look, we want to eat. We don't want to make a meal of the issues. 4 rare steaks, please, and hurry. We haven't eaten in 576,000 million years.
A very wise choice, sir, if I may say so. Very good. I'll just nip off and shoot myself.
He turned and gave a friendly wink to Arthur.
Don't worry, sir. I'll be very humane.
It waddled unhurriedly off to the kitchen. A matter of minutes later, the waiter arrived with 4 huge steaming steaks. Zaphod and Ford wolfed straight into them without a second's hesitation. Trillian paused, then shrugged and started into hers. Arthur stared at his, feeling slightly ill. "Hey, Earthman," said Zaphod, with a malicious grin on the face that wasn't stuffing itself. "What's eating you?" All around the restaurant, people and things relaxed and chatted. For an infinite number of miles in every direction, the universal cataclysm was gathering to a stupefying climax. Glancing at his watch, Max returned to the stage with a flourish. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, is everyone having one last wonderful time?" "Well, that's wonderful," enthused Max. "Absolutely wonderful." And as the photon storms gather in swirling crowds around us, preparing to tear apart the last of the red-hot suns, I know you're all going to settle back and enjoy with me what I know we will all find an immensely exciting and terminal experience. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing penultimate about this one. This really is the absolute end. The final, chilling desolation in which the whole majestic sweep of creation becomes extinct. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the proverbial it. After this, there is nothing. Void. Emptiness. Oblivion. Absolute nothing. Nothing? Except, of course, for the sweet trolley and a fine selection of Aldebaran liqueurs. And for once, you don't need to worry about having a hangover in the morning because there won't be any more mornings. And now, at the risk of putting a damper on the wonderful sense of doom and futility here this evening, I would like to welcome a few parties. Do we have a party here from the Zansel Quasia Flammarium Bridge Club from beyond the Vortvoid of Kvarn? Are they here? A rousing cheer came from the back. Ah, there they are. And do we have a party of minor deities from the halls of Asgard? Away to his right came a rumble of thunder. Lightning arced across the stage. A small group of hairy men with helmets sat looking very pleased with themselves and raised their glasses to him. Has-beens, he thought to himself. Careful with that hammer, sir. And thirdly, a party of young conservatives from Sirius B. Are they here? A party of smartly dressed young dogs stopped throwing rolls at each other and started throwing rolls at the stage. They yapped and barked unintelligibly. Yes, said Max. Well, this is all your fault. You realise that. And finally, I believe we have with us here tonight a party of believers, very devout believers from the Church of the Second Coming of the Great Prophet Zarquon. There were about 20 of them sitting right out on the edge of the floor, ascetically dressed, sipping mineral water nervously, and staying apart from the festivities. They blinked resentfully as the spotlight was turned on them. There they are, sitting there, patiently. He said he'd come again, and he's kept you waiting a long time, so let's hope he's hurrying, fellas, because he's only got 8 minutes left. No, but seriously though, folks, no offence meant. No, I know we shouldn't make fun of deeply held beliefs, so I think a big hand, please, for the great prophet Zarquon, wherever he's got to. It's marvellous, though, to see so many of you here tonight, no, isn't it, though? Yes, absolutely marvellous, because I know that so many of you come here time and time again, which I think is really wonderful, to come and watch this final end of everything and then return home to your own eras and raise families, strive for new and better societies, fight terrible wars for what you know to be right. Well, it really gives one hope for the future of all life kind, except, of course, that we know it hasn't got one. Tipping back his chair, Ford collided with a small green waiter who was approaching the table carrying a portable telephone.
Mr. Zaphod Beeblebrox, there is a phone call for you.
For me? Here? Hey, but who knows where I am? I am not personally acquainted with the metal gentleman in question, sir. Did you say metal? Yes, sir, I said that I am not personally acquainted with the metal gentleman in question, but I am informed that he has been awaiting your return for a considerable number of millennia. It seems you left here somewhat precipitately. Left here? Are you being strange? We only just arrived here. Indeed, sir, but before you arrived here, sir, I understand that you left here. You're saying that before we arrived here, we left here? This is going to be a long night, thought the waiter. Precisely, sir. Put your analyst on danger money, baby, advised Zaphod. No, wait a minute, said Ford, emerging above table level again. Where exactly is here? To be absolutely exact, sir, it is Frogstar World B. But we just left there and came to the restaurant at the end of the universe. Yes, sir. The one was constructed on the ruins of the other. Oh, said Arthur brightly. You mean we've travelled in time, but not in space? Listen, you semi-evolved simian, go climb a tree, will you? Go bang your heads together, Four Eyes. No, your monkey has got it right, sir. You jumped forward, I believe, 576,000 million years while staying in exactly the same place. But, who is the cat on the phone? Whatever happened to Marvin? Said Trillian. The paranoid android, I left him moping about on Frogstar B. Hey, hand me the wrap rod, plate captain. I beg your pardon, sir. The phone, waiter. Sheesh, you guys are so unhip, it's a wonder your bums don't fall off. Indeed, sir. Hey, Marvin, is that you? Said Zaphod into the phone. How you doing, kid?
I think you ought to know I'm feeling very depressed.
Hey, Marvin, we're having a great time. Food, wine, a little personal abuse, and the universe going foom. Where can we find you?
You don't have to pretend to be interested in me, you know. I know perfectly well I'm only a menial robot.
Okay, but where are you?
Reverse primary thrust, Marvin, that's what they say to me. Open airlock number 3, Marvin. Marvin, can you pick up that piece of paper? Can I pick up that piece of paper? Here I am, brain the size of a planet, and they ask me to...
Yeah.
But I'm quite used to being humiliated. I can even go and stick my head in a bucket of water if you like. Would you like me to go and stick my head in a bucket of water? I've got one ready. Wait a minute.
Sad little clunks and gurgles came up the line.
There. I hope that gave satisfaction.
Yeah. Now will you please tell us where you are?
I'm in the car park.
The car park? What are you doing there?
Parking cars. What else does one do in a car park?
Okay, hang in there. We'll be right down. In one movement, Zaphod leapt to his feet, threw down the phone, and wrote Hot Black Desiato on the bill. Come on, guys, he said. Marvin's in the car park. Let's get on down. But what about the end of the universe? We'll miss the big moment. I've seen it. It's rubbish, said Zaphod. Nothing but a nab gib. A what? Opposite of Big Bang. Come on, let's get zappy. Few of the other diners paid them any attention as they weaved their way through the restaurant to the exit. A Sirius Cybernetics Corporation Happy Vertical People Transporter took them down deep into the substrata beneath the restaurant. At the bottom of the shaft, the lift doors opened and a blast of cold, stale air hit them. They turned a corner and found themselves on a moving catwalk that traversed a vast cavernous space that stretched off into the dim distance. There he is, said Trillian. Marvin, down there. They looked where she was pointing. Dimly they could see a small metal figure listlessly rubbing a small rag on one remote corner of a giant silver sun cruiser. Hey, Marvin! Hey, kid, are we pleased to see you?
No, you're not. No one ever is.
Suit yourself, said Zaphod, and turned away to ogle the ships. Ford went with him. Only Trillian and Arthur actually went up to Marvin. No, we really are, said Trillian, and patted him in a way that he disliked intensely. Hanging around waiting for us all this time.
576,000,003,579 years. I counted them.
Well, here we are now.
The first 10 million years were the worst, and the second 10 million years, they were the worst too. The third 10 million I didn't enjoy at all. After that I went into a bit of a decline. It's the people you meet in this job that really get you down. The best conversation I had was over 40 million years ago.
Oh,
and that was with a coffee machine.
That's it.
You don't like talking to me, do you?
Trillian talked to Arthur instead. Further down the chamber, Ford Prefect had found something of which he very much liked the look. "Zaphod," he said in a quiet voice, "just look at this baby. The Tangerine Star Buggy with the black sunbusters." The Star Buggy was a small ship, a totally misnamed one, in fact, because the one thing it couldn't manage was interstellar distances. The next one was a big one, and 30 yards long, a coach-built limo ship and obviously designed with one aim in mind, that of making the beholder sick with envy. "Just look at it," said Zaphod. "Multi-cluster quark drive, Perspulex running boards. Got to be a Laszlo Lyrican custom job. Yeah! Look! The infra-pink lizard emblem on the neutrino cowling. Laszlo's trademark. The man has no shame." "I was passed by one of these mothers once out by the Axel Nebula," said Ford. "I was going flat out, and this thing just strolled past me. Star drive hardly ticking over. Just incredible." 10 seconds later, said Ford, it smashed straight into the third moon of Jaglin Beta. "Hey, come see," he called. "There's a big mural painted on this side. A bursting sun. Disaster area's trademark. This must be Hot Black's ship. Lucky old bugger. They do this terrible song, you know, which ends with a stunt ship crashing into the sun. Meant to be an amazing spectacle. Expensive in stunt ships, though." Zaphod's attention, however, was elsewhere. His attention was riveted on the ship standing next to Hot Black Desiato's limo. "That is really bad for the eyes." Ford looked. He, too, stood astonished. It was a ship of classic, simple design, like a flattened salmon, 20 yards long, very clean, very sleek. There was just one remarkable thing about it. It's so black. You can hardly make out its shape. Light just seems to fall into it. Zaphod said nothing. He had simply fallen in love. "Come and feel this surface," he said in a hushed voice. "See, it's just totally frictionless. This must be one mother of a mover." "What do you reckon, Ford? You mean stroll off with it?" They gazed a little longer, till Zaphod suddenly pulled himself together. "We better shift soon," he said. "In a moment or so the universe will have ended, and all the captain creeps will be pouring down here to find their Borg mobiles. Marvin, come on over here. We've got a job for you."
"I suppose you want me to open this spaceship for you?"
"What? Yes, yeah, that's right."
"Well, I wish you'd just tell me, rather than try to engage my enthusiasm, because I haven't got one."
He walked up to the ship, touched it, and a hatchway swung open. Ford and Zaphod stared at the opening.
"Don't mention it." "Oh, you didn't."
He trudged away again.
"Look at this," said Ford. "Look at the interior of this ship. Weirder and weirder." "It's black," said Ford. "Everything in it is just totally black."
In the restaurant, things were fast approaching the moment after which there wouldn't be any more moments. "And now," cried Max from the center of the stage, "the moment you've all been waiting for. The skies begin to boil. Nature collapses into the screaming void. In 20 seconds' time, the universe itself will be at an end. See where the light of infinity bursts in upon us?" The hideous fury of destruction blazed about them, and at that moment a still small trumpet sounded as from an infinite distance. Max's eyes swiveled round to glare at the band. None of them seemed to be playing a trumpet. Suddenly a wisp of smoke was swirling and shimmering on the stage next to him. The trumpet was joined by more trumpets.
Over 500 times Max had done this show, and nothing like this had ever happened before. He drew back in alarm from the swirling smoke, and as he did so, a figure slowly materialized inside, the figure of an ancient man, bearded, robed, and wreathed in light. In his eyes were stars, and on his brow a golden crown. "What's this? What's happening?" At the back of the restaurant, the stony-faced party from the Church of the Second Coming of the Great Prophet Zarquan leapt ecstatically to their feet, chanting and crying. Max blinked in amazement. He threw up his arms to the audience. "A big hand, please, ladies and gentlemen, for the Great Prophet Zarquan! He has come! Zarquan has come again!" Thunderous applause broke out as Max strode across the stage and handed his microphone to the prophet.
Hello, look, I'm sorry I'm a bit late. I've had the most ghastly time. All sorts of things cropping up at the last moment. How are we for time? Have I just got a min— And so the universe ended. One of the major selling points of that wholly remarkable travel book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, apart from its relative cheapness and the fact that it has the words "Don't Panic" written in large, friendly letters on its cover, is its compendious and occasionally accurate glossary. The statistics relating to the geosocial nature of the universe, for instance, are deftly set out between pages 938,324 and 938,326. And the simplistic style in which they are written is partly explained by the fact that the editors, having to meet a publishing deadline, copied the information off the back of a packet of breakfast cereal, hastily embroidering it with a few footnotes in order to avoid prosecution under the incomprehensibly tortuous galactic copyright laws. It is interesting to note that a later and wilier editor sent the book backwards in time through a temporal warp, and then successfully sued the breakfast cereal company for infringement of the same laws. Here is a sample. The universe. Some information to help you live in it. 1. Area? Infinite. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy offers this definition of the word infinite. Infinite. Bigger than the biggest thing ever, and then some. Much bigger than that, in fact. Really, amazingly immense. A totally stunning size. Real, wow, that's big time. Infinity is just so big that by comparison, bigness itself looks really titchy. Gigantic, multiplied by colossal, multiplied by staggeringly huge, is the sort of concept we're trying to get across here. 2. Imports. None. It is impossible to import things into an infinite area, there being no outside to import things in from. 3. Exports. None. See imports. 4. Population. None. It is known that there are an infinite number of worlds, simply because there is an infinite amount of space for them to be in. However, not every one of them is inhabited. Therefore, there must be a finite number of inhabited worlds. Any finite number divided by infinity is as near to nothing as makes no odds, so the average population of all the planets in the universe can be said to be 0. From this it follows that the population of the whole universe is also 0, and that any people you may meet from time to time are merely the products of a deranged imagination. 5. Monetary units. None. In fact, there are 3 freely convertible currencies in the galaxy, but none of them count. The Altarian dollar has recently collapsed, the Flanian pobble bead is only exchangeable for other Flanian pobble beads, and the Triganic pew has its own very special problems. Its exchange rate of 8 ningies to 1 pew is simple enough, but since a ningi is a triangular rubber coin 6,800 miles along each side, no one has ever collected enough to own 1 pew. Ningies are not negotiable currency because the galactibanks refuse to deal in fiddling small change. From this basic premise, it is very simple to prove that the galactibanks are also the product of a deranged imagination. 6. Art. None. The function of art is to hold the mirror up to nature, and there simply isn't a mirror big enough. See point 1. 7. Sex. None. Well, in fact, there is an awful lot of this, largely because of the total lack of money, trade, banks, art, or anything else that might keep all the non-existent people of the universe occupied. However, it is not worth embarking on a long discussion of it now, because it really is terribly complicated. For further information, see Guide Chapters 7, 9, 10, 11, 14, 16, 17, 19, 21 to 84 inclusive, and in fact most of the rest of the guide. "How are we doing?" said Arthur Dent. "Badly," said Ford Prefect. "Where are we going?" said Trillian. "I don't know," said Zaphod Beeblebrox. "Why not?" demanded Arthur Dent. "Shut up!" "Basically, what you're trying to say," said Arthur Dent, ignoring this suggestion, "is that we're out of control." The ship was rocking and swaying sickeningly as Ford and Zaphod tried to wrest control from the autopilot. "It's the wild color scheme that freaks me," said Zaphod. "Every time you try to operate one of these weird black controls that are labeled in black on a black background, a little black light lights up black to let you know you've done it. What is this? Some kind of galactic hyperhearse?" In fact, though they weren't to know it, the decor had been chosen in honor of its owner's sad, lamented, and tax-deductible condition. The ship gave a particularly sickening lurch. Zaphod left the controls to Ford to figure out and lurched over to Arthur. "Look, Earthman, you've got a job to do, right? The question to the ultimate answer, right?" "All right, but where do we start?" "How should I know? They say the ultimate answer, or whatever, is 42. How am I supposed to know what the question is? It could be anything. I mean, what's 6 times 7? 42! Yes, I know that." Zaphod's faces fell. "I'm just saying the question could be anything at all, and I don't see how I'm meant to know." "Because you were there when your planet did the big firework."
I know. It's printed in the Earthman's brainwave patterns, but I don't suppose you'll be very interested in knowing that.
"You mean you can see into my mind?"
Yes.
Arthur stared in astonishment.
It amazes me how you can manage to live in anything that small.
"Marvin," said Trillian, "if you knew all along, then why didn't you tell us?"
You didn't ask.
At that moment the ship suddenly stopped rocking and swaying, the engine pitch settled down to a gentle hum. "Hey, Ford, that sounds good. Have you worked out the controls on this boat?" "No, I just stopped fiddling with them. I reckon we just go to wherever this ship is going and get off it fast." "Yeah, right."
I could tell you weren't really interested.
"Trouble is," said Ford, "that the one instrument in this whole ship that is giving any reading is worrying me. If it is what I think it is, and if it's saying what I think it's saying, then we've already gone too far back into the past, maybe as much as 2 million years before our own time." "Time is bunk. I wonder who this ship belongs to, anyway," said Arthur. "Me," said Zaphod. "No, who it really belongs to. Really me. Look, property is theft, right? Therefore theft is property. Therefore this ship is mine, okay?" "Tell the ship that." "Ship, this is your new owner speaking to—" He got no further. Several things happened at once. The ship dropped out of time travel mode and re-emerged into real space. All the controls on the console, which had been shut down for the time trip, now lit up. A large vision screen above the console winked into life, revealing a wide starscape and a single very large sun dead ahead of them. None of these things, however, were responsible for the fact that Zaphod was at the same moment hurled bodily backwards against the rear of the cabin, as were all the others. They were hurled back by a single thunderous clap of noise that thudded out of the monitor speakers surrounding the vision screen. "Okay, Channel 9 on power, testing Channel 15. Channel 15, A-OK. The black stunt ship is now in position. It's looking good. Gonna be a great sun dive. Stage computer online? Online. Take control of the black ship. Black ship locked into trajectory program on standby. Testing channel 20. Zaphod leapt across the cabin and switched frequencies on the sub-ether receiver before the next mind-pulverizing noise hit them. He stood there quivering. "What?" said Trillian in a small, quiet voice. "Does sundive mean?"
It means that the ship is going to dive into the sun. Sun dive. It's very simple to understand. What do you expect if you steal Hot Black Desiato's stunt ship?
How do you know that this is Hot Black Desiato's stunt ship?
Simple. I parked it for him.
Then why didn't you tell us?
Well, you said you wanted excitement and adventure and really wild things.
On a different frequency, the sub-ether receiver had picked up a public broadcast, which now echoed round the cabin.
Fine weather for the concert here this afternoon. I'm standing here in front of the stage, in the middle of the red-lit desert, and with the aid of hyperbinoptic glasses, I can just about make out a huge audience cowering there on the horizon all around me. Behind me, the speaker stacks rise like a sheer cliff face, and high above me, the sun is shining away and doesn't know what's going to hit it. The environmentalist lobby do know what's going to hit it, and they claim that the concert will cause earthquakes, tidal waves, hurricanes, irreparable damage to the atmosphere, and all the usual things that environmentalists usually go on about. But I've just had a report that a representative of disaster area met with the environmentalists at lunchtime and had them all shot, so nothing now lies in the way of...
Zaphod switched it off. He turned to Ford. "Tell me what you think I am thinking." "I think you're thinking it's time we got off this ship." "I think you're right," said Zaphod. He span round, wild-eyed. "Ford, how many escape capsules are there?" "None. Did you count them?" "Twice. Did you manage to raise the stage crew on the radio?" "Yeah. I said there were a whole bunch of people on board, and they said to say hi to everybody." "Didn't you tell them who you were?" "Oh, yeah. They said it was a great honor, that and something about a restaurant bill and my executors." Arthur was stumbling around the back of the cabin. He stopped suddenly. "Incidentally, what does teleport mean?" "Where does it say teleport?" "Well, just over here, in fact, just under the word emergency, above the word system, and beside the sign saying out of order." In the pandemonium that instantly followed, the only action to follow was that of Ford Prefect lunging across the cabin to the small black box that Arthur had indicated and stabbing repeatedly at the single black button set into it. A 6-foot square panel slid open beside it, revealing a compartment which resembled a multiple shower unit that had found a new function in life as an electrician's junk store. Half-finished wiring hung from the ceiling. A jumble of abandoned components lay strewn on the floor, and the programming panel lolled out of the cavity in the wall into which it should have been secured. "Hell's donkeys," muttered Zaphod as he and Ford attempted to sort through the tangle of wiring. After a moment or so, Ford told him to stand back. He tossed a coin into the teleport and jiggled a switch on the lolling control panel. With a crackle and spit of light, the coin vanished. "Well, that much of it works. However, there is no guidance system. A matter transference teleport with no guidance programming could put you, well, anywhere." The sun of Kakrafoon loomed huge on the screen. "Who cares? We go where we go. And there is no auto system. We couldn't all go. Someone would have to stay and operate it." A solemn moment shuffled past. The sun loomed larger and larger. "Hey, Marvin, kid, how you doing?"
Very badly, I suspect.
A shortish while later, the concert on Kakrafoon reached an unexpected climax. The black ship, with its single morose occupant, had plunged on schedule into the nuclear furnace of the sun. Arthur woke up and instantly regretted it. Hangovers he'd had, but never anything on this scale. This was it. This was the big one. This was the ultimate pits. Matter transference beams, he decided, were not as much fun as, say, a good solid kick in the head. "Where are we?" gasped Arthur. "I think we're in a spaceship of some kind," said Ford. Down the corridor came the sound of a dull, stomping throb. "Trillian?" called Arthur nervously. "Zaphod?" Ford shrugged. "Nowhere about," he said. "I've looked. They could be anywhere." An unprogrammed teleport can throw you light years in any direction. Judging by the way I feel, I should think we've travelled a very long way indeed. Look, there's a plaque, he explained to Arthur. It's frosted over. He rubbed the frost clear and examined the engraved characters. To Arthur they looked like the footprints of a spider that had had one too many of whatever it is that spiders have on a night out. But Ford instantly recognized an early form of galactic easy read. It says, Golga Frincham Arc Fleet, Ship B, Hold 7, Telephone Sanitizer, 2nd Class, and a serial number. A telephone sanitizer? Said Arthur. A dead telephone sanitizer? Best kind. But what's he doing here? Ford peered through the top at the figure within. Not a lot, he said. He scampered over to another sarcophagus. This one's a dead hairdresser. Whoopee! The next sarcophagus revealed itself to be the last resting place of an advertising account executive. The one after that contained a second-hand car salesman, 3rd class. An inspection hatch let into the floor suddenly caught Ford's attention, and he squatted down to unfasten it, thrashing away at the clouds of freezing gas that threatened to envelop him. A thought occurred to Arthur. If these are just coffins, he said, why are they kept so cold? Or indeed, why are they kept anyway? Said Ford, tugging the hatchway open. The gas poured down through it. Why, in fact, is anyone going to all the trouble and expense of carting 5,000 dead bodies through space? 10,000, said Arthur, pointing at the archway through which the next chamber was dimly visible. Ford stuck his head down through the floor hatchway. He looked up again. 15,000, he said. There's another lot down there.
15 million, said a voice.
That's a lot, said Ford.
A lot.
Turn around slowly, barked the voice, and put your hands up. Any other move and I blast you into tiny, tiny bits. Hello, said Ford, turning round slowly, putting his hands up and not making any other move. Why, said Arthur Dent, isn't anyone ever pleased to see us? Move, screamed their captor. Arthur moved. Ford shrugged and moved. Ford Prefect and Arthur Dent trudged onwards up the ship's apparently endless corridors. Number 2 marched behind them, barking the occasional order about not making any false moves or trying any funny stuff. They seemed to have passed at least a mile of continuous brown Hessian wall weave. Finally they reached a large steel door which slid open when Number 2 shouted at it. They entered. To the eyes of Ford Prefect and Arthur Dent, the most remarkable thing about the ship's bridge was not the 50-foot diameter hemispherical dome which covered it and through which the dazzling display of stars shone down on them. To people who have eaten at the restaurant at the end of the universe, such wonders are commonplace. Nor was it the bewildering array of instruments that crowded the long circumferential wall around them. To Arthur this was exactly what spaceships were traditionally supposed to look like, and to Ford it looked thoroughly antiquated. It confirmed his suspicions that Disaster Area's stunt ship had taken them back at least 1 million, if not 2 million years before their own time. No, the thing that really caught them off balance was the bath. The bath stood on a 6-foot pedestal of rough-hewn blue-water crystal and was of a baroque monstrosity not often seen outside the Maximegalon Museum of Diseased Imaginings. An intestinal jumble of plumbing had been picked out in gold leaf rather than decently buried at midnight in an unmarked grave. The taps and shower attachment would have made a gargoyle jump. As the dominant centrepiece of a starship bridge, it was terribly wrong, and it was with the embittered air of a man who knew this that Number 2 approached it. "Captain, sir!" A large, genial face and a genial foam-covered arm popped up above the rim of the monstrous bath. "Ah, hello, Number 2, said the captain, waving a cheery sponge. "Having a nice day?" "I have brought you the prisoners I located in Freezer Bay 7, sir." Ford and Arthur coughed in confusion. Hello, they said. The captain beamed at them. "Oh, hello there. Excuse me not getting up, just having a quick bath. Well, gin and tonics all round, then. Look in the fridge, Number 1. "Certainly, sir." Number 2 stood before the captain's bathtub, trembling with frustration. "Don't you want to interrogate the prisoner, sir?" "Why on Golga Frincham should I want to do that?" "To get
information out of them, sir, to find out why they came here.
Oh, no. I expect they just dropped in for a quick gin and tonics, don't you?
But, sir, they're my prisoners. I must interrogate them.
Oh, all right, if you must. Ask them what they want to drink.
All right, you scum, you vermin. What do you want to drink?
Well, the gin and tonic sounds very nice to me. What about you, Arthur? What? Oh, yes.
With ice or without?
Oh, with, please, said Ford.
Lemon?
Yes, please, said Ford. And do you have any of those little biscuits? You know, the cheesy ones?
I'm asking the questions!
Number 2.
Sir!
Push off, would you? There's a good chap. I'm trying to have a relaxing bath.
May I remind you, sir, that you have now been in that bath for over 3 years?
Well, you need to relax a lot in a job like mine. Treading very slowly and carefully, Ford moved over to the bath pedestal. I wonder, said Ford, could I ask you actually what your job is, in fact? A hand tapped him on the shoulder. It was the first officer. Your drinks, he said. Ah, thank you. I mean, I couldn't help noticing the bodies in the hold. Bodies? Said the captain in surprise. Yes, all those dead telephone sanitizers and account executives, you know, down in the hold. Oh, no, they're not dead. Good Lord, no, they're frozen. They're going to be revived. Arthur seemed to come out of a trance. You mean you've got a hold full of frozen hairdressers? Oh, yes, said the captain. Millions of them. Hairdressers, tired TV producers, insurance salesmen, personnel officers, security guards, public relations executives, management consultants, you name it. We're going to colonize another planet. Exciting, isn't it? What? With that lot? Said Arthur. Ah, now don't misunderstand me. We're just one of the ships in the Ark fleet. We're the B Ark, you see. Sorry, could I just ask you to run a bit more hot water for me? Arthur obliged, and a cascade of pink, frothy water swirled around the bath. The captain let out a sigh of pleasure. Thank you so much, my dear fellow. Do help yourselves to more drinks, of course. Ford tossed down his drink, took the bottle from the first officer's tray, and refilled his glass to the top. What, he said, is a B Ark? Well, this is, said the captain, and swished the foamy water around joyfully with the duck. Well, what happened, you see, was our planet, the world from which we have come, was, so to speak, doomed. Doomed? Oh, yes. So what everyone thought was, let's pack the whole population into some giant spaceships and go and settle on another planet. You mean a less doomed one? Yes. So it was decided to build 3 ships, you see, 3 arcs in space, and I'm not boring you, am I? No, said Ford firmly. It's fascinating. You know, it's delightful to have someone else to talk to for a change. Trouble with a long journey like this is that you end up just talking to yourself a lot, which gets terribly boring because half the time you know what you're going to say next. Only half the time? Asked Arthur in surprise. Yes, about half, I'd say. Anyway, where's the soap? He fished around and found it. Yes, so, anyway, he resumed, the idea was that into the first ship, the A ship, would go all the brilliant leaders, the scientists, the great artists, you know, all the achievers, and then into the third, or C ship, would go all the people who did the actual work, who made things and did things. And then into the B ship, well, that's us, would go everyone else, the middlemen, you see. And we were sent off first, he concluded, and hummed a little bathing tune. Said Arthur after a moment, what exactly was it that was wrong with your planet, then? Oh, it was doomed, as I said. Apparently it was going to crash into the sun or something, or maybe it was that the moon was going to crash into us. Well, something of the kind, absolutely terrifying prospect, whatever it was. Oh, said the first officer suddenly, I thought it was that the planet was going to be invaded by a gigantic swarm of 12-foot piranha bees. Wasn't that it? Number 2 span around.
That's not what I was told. My commanding officer told me that the entire planet was in imminent danger of being eaten by an enormous mutant star goat, a monstrous creature from the pit of hell with scything teeth 10,000 miles long, breath that would boil oceans, claws that could tear continents from their roots, 1,000 eyes that burned like the sun, slavering jaws 1,000,000 miles across, a monster such as you have never, ever...
And they made sure they sent you lot off first, did they? Inquired Arthur. Oh, yes, said the captain. Well, everyone said very nicely, I thought, that it was very important for morale to feel that they would be arriving on a planet where they could be sure of a good haircut and where the phones were clean. Oh, yes, agreed Ford. I can see that would be very important. And the other ships, they followed on after you, did they? Ah, well, it's funny you should say that, because, curiously enough, we haven't heard a peep out of them since we left 5 years ago. But they must be behind us somewhere. He peered off into the distance again. Ford peered with him and gave a thoughtful frown. Unless, of course, they were eaten by the goat. Ah, yes, the goat. It's a funny thing, you know, but now that I actually come to tell the story to someone else, I mean, does it strike you as odd, number one? Said number one. Well, said Ford, I can see that you've got a lot of things you're going to want to talk about, so thanks for the drinks, and if you could sort of drop us off at the nearest convenient planet. Ah, well, that's a little difficult, you see, because our trajectory thingy was preset before we left Golga Frincham. I think partly because I'm not very good with figures. You mean... we're stuck here on this ship, exclaimed Ford, suddenly losing patience with the whole charade. When are you meant to be reaching this planet you're meant to be colonizing? Oh, we're nearly there, I think, said the captain. Any second now. It's probably time I was getting out of this bath, in fact. Oh, I don't know, though. Why stop just when I'm enjoying it? So we're actually going to land in a minute, said Arthur. Well, not so much land, in fact, not actually land as such. No, I think as far as I can remember, we were programmed to, crash on it. Crash? Yes, said the captain, yes. It's all part of the plan, I think. There was a terribly good reason for it, which I can't quite remember at the moment. It was something to do with, Ford exploded. You're a load of useless bloody loonies, he shouted. Ah, yes, that was it, beamed the captain. That was the reason. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has this to say about the planet of Golga Frincham. It is a planet with an ancient and mysterious history, in which the most mysterious figures of all were without doubt those of the great circling poets of Arium. These circling poets used to live in remote mountain passes where they would lie in wait for small bands of unwary travellers, circle around them, and throw rocks at them. And when the travellers cried out, saying, why didn't they go away and get on with writing some poems instead of pestering people with all this rock-throwing business, they would suddenly stop and then break into one of the 794 great song cycles of Vasilian. These songs were all of extraordinary beauty, and even more extraordinary length, and all fell into exactly the same pattern. The first part of each song would tell how there once went forth from the city of Vasilian a party of 5 sage princes with 4 horses. The princes, who were of course brave, noble, and wise, travel widely in distant lands, fight giant ogres, pursue exotic philosophies, take tea with weird gods, and rescue beautiful monsters from ravening princesses, before finally announcing that they have achieved enlightenment and that their wanderings are therefore accomplished. The second and much longer part of each song would then tell of all their bickerings about which one of them is going to have to walk back. All this lay in the planet's remote past. It was, however, a descendant of one of these eccentric poets who invented the spurious tales of impending doom which enabled the people of Golga Frincham to rid themselves of an entire useless third of their population. The other 2/3 stayed firmly at home and lived full, rich and happy lives until they were all suddenly wiped out by a virulent disease contracted from a dirty telephone. That night, the ship crash-landed onto an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet which circled a small, unregarded yellow sun in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy. In the hours preceding the crash, Ford Prefect had fought furiously but in vain to unlock the controls of the ship from their preordained flight path. It had quickly become apparent to him that the ship had been programmed to convey its payload safely, if uncomfortably, to its new home, but to cripple itself beyond all hope of repair in the process. Its screaming, blazing descent through the atmosphere had stripped away most of its superstructure and outer shielding, and its final inglorious belly-flop into a murky swamp had left its crew only a few hours of darkness during which to revive and offload its deep-frozen and unwanted cargo, for the ship began to settle almost at once, slowly upending its gigantic bulk in the stagnant slime. Countless numbers had, unsurprisingly, been lost to the swamp in the night, and millions more had been sucked down with the ship, but those that survived still numbered hundreds of thousands, and as the day wore on they crawled out over the surrounding countryside, each looking for a few square feet of solid ground on which to collapse and recover from their nightmare ordeal. "I trust you had a pleasant meal," said Zarniwoop to Zaphod and Trillian as they rematerialized on the bridge of the starship Heart of Gold and lay panting on the floor. Zaphod opened some eyes and glowered at him. "You!" He staggered to his feet and stomped off to find a chair to slump into. He found one and slumped into it. "I have programmed the computer with the improbability coordinates pertinent to our journey," said Zarniwoop. "We will arrive there very shortly. Meanwhile, why don't you relax and prepare yourself for the meeting? And when this is all done, it's done, all right? I'm free to go and do what the hell I like and lie on beaches and stuff." "Oh, it depends what transpires from the meeting," said Zarniwoop. "Zaphod, who is this man?" said Trillian shakily, wobbling to her feet. "What's he doing here? Why is he on our ship?" "He's a very stupid man who wants to meet the man who rules the universe." "Ah," said Trillian, "a social climber." On a small, obscure world somewhere in the middle of nowhere in particular, nowhere, that is, that could ever be found, since it is protected by a vast field of unprobability to which only 6 men in this galaxy have a key, it was raining. It was bucketing down, and had been for hours. It beat the top of the sea into a mist. It pounded the trees. It churned and slopped a stretch of scrubby land near the sea into a mud bath. The rain pelted and danced on the corrugated iron roof of the small shack that stood in the middle of this patch of scrubby land. It obliterated the small rough pathway that led from the shack down to the seashore and smashed apart the neat piles of interesting shells which had been placed there. The noise of the rain on the roof of the shack was deafening within, but went largely unnoticed by its occupant, whose attention was otherwise engaged. He was a tall, shambling man with rough, straw-coloured hair that was damp from the leaking roof. His clothes were shabby, his back was hunched, and his eyes, though open, seemed closed. In his shack was an old beaten-up armchair, an old scratched table, an old mattress, some cushions, and a stove that was small but warm. There was also an old and slightly weather-beaten cat, and this was currently the focus of the man's attention. "Pussy, pussy, pussy, coochie, 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 coo. Pussy want his fish? Nice piece of fish. Pussy want it?" The cat seemed undecided on the matter. "Pussy not eat his fish. Pussy get thin and waste away. I imagine this is what will happen, but how can I tell? Pussy think, eat fish or not eat fish. I think it is better if I don't get involved." He left the fish on the floor for the cat and retired to his seat. "Fish come from far away, or so I am told, or so I imagine I'm told. When the men come, or when in my mind the men come in their 6 black shiny ships, do they come in your mind too? What do you see, Pussy?
When I hear their questions, do you hear their questions? What do their voices mean to you? Perhaps you just think they're singing songs to you. Perhaps they are singing songs to you, and I just think they're asking me questions. From the table, he picked up a cigarette and lit it with a spill from the stove. He inhaled deeply and sat back. I think I saw another ship in the sky today. A big white one. I've never seen a big white one, just the 6 black ones, and the 6 green ones, and the others who say they come from so far away. Well, never a big white one. Perhaps 6 small black ones can look like a big white one at certain times. Perhaps I would like a glass of whiskey. Yes, that seems more likely. He stood up and found a glass that was lying on the floor by his mattress. He poured in a measure from his whiskey bottle. He sat again. Perhaps some other people are coming to see me. 100 yards away, pelted by the torrential rain, lay the Heart of Gold. Its hatchway opened and 3 figures emerged, huddling into themselves to keep the rain off their faces. "In there!" shouted Trillian above the noise of the rain. "Yes," said Zarniwoop. "That shack?" "Yes." "Weird," said Zaphod. "But it's in the middle of nowhere," said Trillian. "We must have come to the wrong place. You can't rule the universe from a shack." They hurried through the pouring rain and arrived wet through at the door. They knocked. They shivered. The door opened. "Hello?" "Ah, excuse me," said Zarniwoop. "I have reason to believe—" "Do you rule the universe?" said Zaphod. "I try not to. Are you wet?" "Wet? Doesn't it look as if we're wet?" "That's how it looks to me," said the man, "but how you feel about it might be an altogether different matter. If you find warmth makes you dry, you'd better come in." They went in. They looked around the tiny shack, Zarniwoop with slight distaste, Trillian with interest, Zaphod with delight. "Hey, what's your name?" "I don't know. Why, do you think I should have one? It seems very odd to give a bundle of vague sensory perceptions a name." He invited Trillian to sit in the chair. He sat on the edge of the chair. Zarniwoop leaned stiffly against the table, and Zaphod lay on the mattress. "Wow-wee!" said Zaphod. "The seat of power!" "Listen," said Zarniwoop, "I must ask you some questions." Zarniwoop pulled some notes out of a pocket. "Now," he said, "you do rule the universe, do you?" "How can I tell?" Zarniwoop ticked off a note on the paper. "How long have you been doing this?" This is a question about the past, is it?" "Oh, how can I tell? That the past isn't a fiction designed to account for the discrepancy between my immediate physical sensations and my state of mind." "So you answer all questions like this?" "I say what it occurs to me to say when I think I hear people say things. More I cannot say." Zaphod laughed happily. "I'll drink to that," he said, and pulled out the bottle of jank spirit. He leapt up and handed the bottle to the ruler of the universe, who took it with pleasure. "Good on you, great ruler. Tell it like it is." "No, listen to me," said Zarniwoop. "People come to you, do they, in ships?" I think so. "And they ask you," said Zarniwoop, "to take decisions for them about people's lives, about worlds, about economies, about wars, about everything going on out there in the universe?" "Out there? Out where?" "Out there," said Zarniwoop, pointing at the door. "Well, how can you tell there's anything out there? The door is closed." "But you know there's a whole universe out there," cried Zarniwoop. "You can't dodge your responsibilities by saying they don't exist." "You're very sure of your facts. I couldn't trust the thinking of a man who takes the universe, if there is one, for granted. I only decide about my universe. My universe is my eyes and my ears. Anything else is hearsay." But don't you believe in anything? I don't understand what you mean. You don't understand that what you decide in this shack of yours affects the lives and fates of millions of people? This is all monstrously wrong. I don't know. I've never met all these people you speak of, and neither, I suspect, have you. They only exist in words we hear. It is folly to say you know what is happening to other people. Only they know, if they exist. They have their own universes of their eyes and ears.
Trillian said, "I think I'm just popping outside for a moment." She left and walked into the rain. "Do you believe other people exist?"
"I have no opinion. How can I say?"
"I'd better see what's up with Trillian," said Zaphod, and slipped out. Outside, he said to her, I think the universe is in pretty good hands, yeah?" "Very good," said Trillian. They walked off into the rain. Inside, Zarniwoop continued, "But don't you understand that people live or die on your word?" The ruler of the universe waited for as long as he could. When he heard the faint sound of the ship's engine starting, he spoke to cover it. "It's nothing to do with me. I am not involved with people. The Lord knows I am not a cruel man." "Ah, you say the Lord. You believe in something."
My cat. I call him the Lord. I am kind to him."
"All right. How do you know he exists? How do you know he knows you to be kind or enjoys what he thinks of as your kindness?"
"I don't. I have no idea. It merely pleases me to behave in a certain way to what appears to be a cat. Do you behave any differently? Please, I think I am tired."
Zarniwoop heaved a thoroughly dissatisfied sigh and looked about. "Where are the other two?"
"What other two?"
"Beeblebrox and the girl, the two who were here."
"I remember no one. The past is a fiction to account for—"
"Stuff it," snapped Zarniwoop, and ran out into the rain. There was no ship. The rain continued to churn the mud. There was no sign to show where the ship had been. He hollered into the rain. He turned and ran back to the shack and found it locked. The ruler of the universe dozed lightly in his chair. Various noises continued outside, but he didn't know whether they were real or not. He then talked to his table for a week to see how it would react. High in a tree on the edge of a clearing squatted Ford Prefect, lately returned from foreign climes. After his 6-month journey he was lean and healthy. His eyes gleamed. He wore a reindeer-skin coat. His beard was as thick and his face as bronzed as a country rock singer's. He and Arthur Dent had been watching the Golgafrinchans for the past week now, and Ford had decided it was time to stir things up a bit. The clearing was now full. Hundreds of men and women lounged around, chatting, eating fruit, playing cards, and generally having a fairly relaxed time of it. Their tracksuits were now all dirty and even torn, but they all had immaculately styled hair. Ford was puzzled to see that many of them had stuffed their tracksuits full of leaves and wondered if this was meant to be some form of insulation against the coming winter. Ford's eyes narrowed. They couldn't be interested in botany of a sudden, could they? In the middle of these speculations, the captain's voice rose above the hubbub. "I would like to call to order the 573rd meeting of the Colonization Committee of Fintel Woodlewicks." 10 seconds, thought Ford as he leapt to his feet again. "This is futile! 573 committee meetings and you haven't even discovered fire yet! If you would care," said the girl with the strident voice, "to examine the agenda sheet, you will see that we are having a report from the Hairdressers' Fire Development Subcommittee today." Said the hairdresser with a sheepish look which is recognized the whole galaxy over as meaning, "will next Tuesday do?" "All right," said Ford, rounding on him. "What have you done? What are you going to do? What are your thoughts on fire development?" "Well, I don't know. All they gave me was a couple of sticks." "So, what have you done with them?" Nervously, the hairdresser fished in his tracksuit top and handed over the fruits of his labour to Ford, who held them up for all to see. "Curling tongs."
"Well, you're obviously being totally naive, of course," said the girl. "When you've been in marketing as long as I have, you'll know that before any new product can be developed, it has to be properly researched. We've got to find out what people want from fire, how they relate to it, what sort of image it has for them."
The crowd were tense. They were expecting something wonderful from Ford. "Stick it up your nose."
"Which is precisely the sort of thing we need to know," insisted the girl. "Do people want fire that can be fitted nasally?"
"And the wheel," said the captain. "What about this wheel thingy? It sounds a terribly interesting project."
"Ah, well, we're having a little difficulty there."
"Difficulty?" exclaimed Ford. "It's the single simplest machine in the entire universe."
"All right, Mr. Wise Guy, you're so clever, you tell us what colour it should be."
Ford shrugged his shoulders and sat down again. "Almighty Zarquon," he said, "have none of you done anything?"
"Captain, sir, permission to report, sir?"
"Yes, all right, number 2, welcome back and all that."
"We have discovered another continent, and we have declared war on it."
Ford leapt to his feet.
"War," he said, "on the next continent?"
"Yes, total warfare, the war to end all wars."
"But there's no one even living there yet."
"I know that, but there will be one day, so we have left an open-ended ultimatum and blown up a few military installations."
The captain leaned forward out of his bath. "Military installations, number 2, he said.
"Yes, sir. Well, potential military installations. All right. Trees. And we interrogated a gazelle."
Ford sat and idly tapped a couple of stones together. "So, what else have you done?"
"We have started a culture," said the marketing girl. "One of our film producers is already making a fascinating documentary about the indigenous cavemen of the area."
"But have you noticed that they're dying out?
Do you know what that means?"
We shouldn't sell them any life insurance," called out a wag. Ford ignored him and appealed to the whole crowd.
"Can you try and understand," he said, "that it's just since we've arrived here that they've started dying out?" "Well, in fact, that comes over terribly well in this film," said the marketing girl, "and just gives it that poignant twist which is the hallmark of the really great documentary. I gather that he wants to make one about you next, Captain."
"Oh, really? Well, that's awfully nice."
"He's got a very strong angle on it, you know. The burden of responsibility, the loneliness of command."
"Well, I wouldn't overstress that angle, you know. One's never alone with a rubber duck." At this point, the management consultant rose to his feet. "If we could for a moment move on to the subject of fiscal policy."
"Fiscal policy?" whooped Ford Prefect. "How can you have money if none of you actually produces anything? It doesn't grow on trees, you know."
"If you would allow me to continue." "Thank you. Since we decided a few weeks ago to adopt the leaf as legal tender, we have, of course, all become immensely rich. But we have also run into a small inflation problem on account of the high level of leaf availability, which means that, I gather, the current going rate is something like 3 deciduous forests buying 1 ship's peanut." Murmurs of alarm came from the crowd. "So in order to obviate this problem," he continued, "and effectively revalue the leaf, we are about to embark on a massive defoliation campaign and burn down all the forests. I think you'll all agree that's a sensible move under the circumstances."
"You are all mad," explained Ford Prefect. "You're absolutely balmy. You are a bunch of raving nutters."
The tide of opinion was beginning to turn against him. Sensing this shift in the wind, the marketing girl turned on him.
"Is it perhaps in order to inquire what you've been doing all these months, then? You and that other interloper have been missing since the day we arrived."
"We've been on a journey," said Ford. "We went to try and find out something about this planet."
"Oh, doesn't sound very productive to me." No? Well, have I got news for you, my love? We have discovered this planet's future. It doesn't matter a pair of fetid dingoes' kidneys what you all choose to do from now on. Burn down the forest, anything, it won't make a scrap of difference. Your future history has already happened. 2 million years you've got, and that's it. At the end of that time, your race will be dead. Gone, and good riddance to you. Remember that. 2 million years.
Well, said the captain with a soothing smile, still time for a few more baths. Could someone pass me the sponge? I just dropped it over the side. A mile or so away through the wood, Arthur Dent was too busily engrossed with what he was doing to hear Ford Prefect approach. Ford watched quietly from beside a nearby tree. No, Q scores 10, you see, and it's on a triple word score, so, look, I've explained the rules to you. No, look, please, put down that jawbone. All right, we'll start again, and try to concentrate this time. Ford leaned his elbow against the tree and his hand against his head. What are you doing, Arthur? I'm trying to teach the cavemen to play Scrabble. It's uphill work. The only word they know is grunt, and they can't spell it. Well, what's that supposed to achieve? Asked Ford. We've got to encourage them to evolve. Can you imagine what a world would be like, descended from those cretins we arrived with? Imagine, said Ford, raising his eyebrows. We don't have to imagine. We've seen it. Arthur kicked at a stone. Did you tell them what we discovered? Norway? Slarty Bartfast's signature in the glacier? Did you tell them? Well, what's the point, said Ford. What would it mean to them? Mean? You know perfectly well what it means. It means that this planet is the Earth. It's my home. It's where I was born. Was, said Ford. All right, will be. Yes, in 2 million years' time. Why don't you tell them that? Go and say to them, excuse me, I'd just like to point out that in 2 million years' time I will be born just a few miles from here. See what they say. They'll chase you up a tree and set fire to it. Face it, said Ford. Those Zebes over there are your ancestors, not these poor creatures here. Put the Scrabble away, Arthur, he said. It won't save the human race, because this lot aren't going to be the human race. The human race is currently sitting round a rock on the other side of this hill, making documentaries about themselves. Arthur winced. There must be something we can do. No, said Ford, there's nothing we can do. This doesn't change the history of the Earth, you see. This is the history of the Earth. Like it or leave it, the Golgafrinchans are the people you are descended from. In 2 million years they get destroyed by the Vogons. History is never altered, you see. It just fits together like a jigsaw. Funny old thing, life, isn't it? Poor bloody caveman. It's all been a bit of a waste of time for them, hasn't it? Said Arthur. Muttered the native, and banged on the rock again. Why does he keep banging on the rock? Said Arthur. I think he probably wants you to Scrabble with him again, said Ford. He's pointing at the letters. The native banged on the rock again. They looked over his shoulder. Their eyes popped. There, amongst the jumble of letters, were 8 that had been laid out in a clear, straight line. They spelt 2 words. The words were these: 42.
Grr,
Explained the native. He swept the letters angrily away and went and mooched under a nearby tree with his colleague. Ford and Arthur stared at him. Then they stared at each other. Did that say what I thought it said? They both said to each other. Yes, they both said. 42, said Arthur. You know what this means, said Ford. 42 is the number Deep Thought gave as being the ultimate answer, and the Earth is the computer Deep Thought designed and built to calculate the question to the ultimate answer. So we are led to believe. And organic life was part of the computer matrix. If you say so, I do say so. That means that these natives, these ape men, are an integral part of the computer program, and that we and the Golgafrinchans are not. But the cavemen are dying out, and the Golgafrinchans are obviously set to replace them. Exactly. So you see what this means? What? Cock up, said Ford Prefect. Arthur looked round him. This planet is having a pretty bloody time of it, he said. Ford puzzled for a moment.
Still, something must have come out of it, he said at last, because Marvin said he could see the question printed in your brainwave patterns. But probably the wrong one, or a distortion of the right one. It might give us a clue, though, if we could find it. I don't see how we can, though. They moped about for a bit. Arthur sat on the ground and kept pulling up bits of grass, while Ford fiddled with his sub-ether sensomatic. "Ford, look. If that question is printed in my brainwave patterns, but I'm not consciously aware of it, it must be somewhere in my unconscious." "Yes, I suppose so." "There might be a way of bringing that unconscious pattern forward by introducing some random element that can be shaped by that pattern, like by pulling Scrabble letters out of a bag blindfold." Ford leapt to his feet. "Brilliant," he said. He tugged his towel out of his satchel and with a few deft knots transformed it into a bag. They piled together all the remaining letters and dropped them into the bag. They shook them up. "Right," said Ford. "Close your eyes. Pull them out. Come on, come on." Arthur closed his eyes and plunged his hand into the towel full of stones. He jiggled them about, pulled out 4, and handed them to Ford. Ford laid them along the ground in the order he got them. "W," said Ford. "H-A-T. "What?" "I think it's working," he said. Arthur pushed 3 more at him. D-O-Y. Doy. O-U-G. Doyug. E-T. Do you get? "Do you get?" shouted Ford. "It is working! This is amazing! It really is working!" "More here!" Arthur was throwing them out feverishly as fast as he could go. "I-F," said Ford. "Y-O-U-M. U-L-T. I-P-L-Y. What do you get if you multiply? S-I-X. 6? B-Y. By. 6 by. What do you get if you multiply 6 by N-I-N-E? 6 by 9. He paused. "Come on, where's the next one?" That's the lot," said Arthur. "That's all there were." "You mean that's it?" said Ford. "That's it." 6 by 9? 42? That's it. That's all there is. The sun came out and beamed cheerfully at them. The sound of voices lilted through the trees, followed a moment later by 2 girls who stopped in surprise at the sight of Ford Prefect and Arthur Dent apparently lying on the ground in agony, but in fact rocking with noiseless laughter. "No, no, don't go," called Ford Prefect between gasps. "We'll be with you in just a moment." "What's the matter?" asked one of the girls. She was the taller and slimmer of the two. On Golga Frincham she had been a junior personnel officer, but hadn't liked it much. Ford pulled himself together. "Excuse me. Hello, my friend and I were just contemplating the meaning of life." Frivolous exercise. "Oh, it's you. You made a bit of a spectacle of yourself this afternoon. You were quite funny to begin with, but you did bang on a bit." "Did I? Oh, yes." "Yes, what was all that for?" asked the other girl, a shorter, round-faced girl who had been an art director for a small advertising company in Golga Frincham. "For? For nothing. Nothing's for anything. Come and join us. I'm Ford. This is Arthur. We were just about to do nothing at all for a while, but it can wait." The girls looked at them doubtfully. "I'm Agda," said the tall one. "This is Mella." "Hello, Agda. Hello, Mella," said Ford. "Do you talk at all?" said Mella to Arthur. "Oh, eventually," said Arthur with a smile, "but not as much as Ford." "Good." There was a slight pause. "What did you mean," asked Agda, "about only having 2 million years? I couldn't make sense of what you were saying." "Oh, that," said Ford, "it doesn't matter." "It's just that the world gets demolished to make way for a hyperspace bypass," said Arthur with a shrug. "But that's 2 million years away, and anyway it's just Vogons doing what Vogons do." "Vogons?" said Mella. "Yes, you wouldn't know them. Where'd you get this idea from?" "It really doesn't matter. It's just like a dream from the past, or the future." Arthur smiled and looked away. "Does it worry you that you don't talk any kind of sense?" asked Agda. Listen, forget it, said Ford. Forget all of it. Nothing matters. Look, it's a beautiful day. Enjoy it. The sun, the green of the hills, the river down in the valley, the burning trees. Even if it's only a dream, it's a pretty horrible idea, said Mella. Destroying a world just to make a bypass. Oh, I've heard of worse, said Ford. I read of one planet off in the 7th dimension that got used as a ball in a game of intergalactic bar billiards. Got potted straight into a black hole. Killed 10 billion people. That's mad, said Mella. Yes, only scored 30 points, too. Look, said Agda, there's a party after the committee meeting tonight. You can come along if you like. Yeah, okay, said Ford. I'd like to, said Arthur. Many hours later, Arthur and Mella sat and watched the moon rise over the dull red glow of the trees. That story about the world being destroyed, began Mella. In 2 million years, yes. You say it as if you really think it's true. Yes, I think it is. I think I was there. You're very strange, she said. No, I'm very ordinary, said Arthur, but some very strange things have happened to me. You could say I'm more differed from than differing. And that other world your friend talked about, the one that got pushed into a black hole? Ah, that I don't know about. It sounds like something from the book. What book? Arthur paused. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. What's that? Oh, just something I threw into the river this evening. I don't think I'll be wanting it any more.